Well, another day in the Lane Kiffin saga. Will he, won't he, what will he do? So when we were here a day ago, there was a report from Stuart Mandel over at The Athletic that Ole Miss had given Lane Kiffin an ultimatum. It was the word used, and actually a date on it was the Egg Bowl, that Black Friday, November the 28th. And on Monday evening, I had multiple people suggest to me that the term ultimatum was too strong of a term. That wouldn't actually be accurate. Neither was the date. And I think Stuart Mandel's report is maybe tap dancing around some truth. Maybe this is just one of those instances where semantics matter, like how you phrase something matters, which could give certain sides plausible deniability in all of this. The tenets that I think remain true are Lane Kiffin has interest from Florida, Lane Kiffin has interest from LSU, and Lane Kiffin could certainly stay at Ole Miss. And at this point, when I ask around, and I mean, most of my life these days, and this is what happens in coaching searches, I'm not complaining, I'm just explaining. Most of my life is spending all day talking to anyone who would have any type of insight into what is happening to see what stories start to align. And I mean people from Ole Miss, from LSU, from Florida, media people, administrators, boosters, agents, all of them. Politicians, everybody. Whoever might have some line. Players, family members, family of players. There's lots of different people who could have a take, insight, collective people. There's lots of people that have some semblance or understanding of what's happening to some degree. And so you try to piece the puzzle together. And I think what we know is there's three options on the table from which Lane Kiffin will choose. Stay at Ole Miss, go to Florida, go to LSU. It feels like, certainly since the weekend, LSU has overtaken Florida. Meaning if Lane Kiffin leaves Ole Miss, I think he picks LSU. There's always the possibility he stays at Ole Miss. I certainly think that's a possibility at this point. I don't know how real of a possibility, but I think there's a possibility that happens. The timing is the other part of this, which is really interesting as we continue to map it all out, because what's pretty clear is that Lane Kiffin wants to coach his team in meaningful games, but Ole Miss, if Lane Kiffin isn't going to stay, needs to get moving on its coaching search. And so that's why there is some urgency, I would say. Instead of saying ultimatum, I would say urgency from Ole Miss's side to have an answer from Lane Kiffin as to what's going to happen, some finality. And so Lane Kiffin did something that I would not have advised him to do in any way, similar to a couple of weeks ago when the governor of Louisiana gave his press conference and then went on McAfee and came on this show. And then the new president had his misstep and then gave an interview and went on radio in New Orleans and then was putting out statements. Anyway, my opinion is, in covering not only coaching searches, just a lot of different things over 20 plus years, if you just don't say anything at all, the news cycle will pass you by. Like the example that I have given for more than 20 years is, and if you're old enough to remember this, this will immediately jar in your brain. Do you know what the number one story in the world was on September the 10th, 2001? The number one story in the world. Where is Chandra Levy? Now, I know there's a lot of you people who don't have any idea what I just said. But if you're old enough to remember what was going on in the world in September of 2001, that story, if you're a kid, look it up. That story dominated every minute of every day. And then the towers fell, and in a quarter century since, no one has mentioned the name Chandra Levy. Like, That's an extreme example, but the point being, the news cycle never stops. And if you just don't say anything, something else is going to overtake the news cycle. So just don't say anything. But Lane Kiffin decided to say something today, really loudly. I mean, a day after his wife gets on a plane to Baton Rouge, she spends Sunday in Gainesville, his ex-wife, is Sunday in Gainesville, Monday in Baton Rouge, flying out of the University Oxford Airport. I mean, boom. I mean, it is the University Oxford Airport. Private jet, Baton Rouge, Oxford, like, you ain't even trying to hide it. While all this is going on and you're trying to profess your love to Ole Miss and your family is touring Baton Rouge, it's probably a good time, open date, probably a good time just not to say anything. But Lane Kiffin went on McAfee and talked about that ultimatum.
That's absolutely not true. There's been no ultimatum, anything like that at all. And so I don't know where that came from, like a lot of stuff that comes out there. Like I said, man, we're having a blast. I love it here. I mean, our running back's sitting right over here. It just couldn't be better. Like I said, you pray for things. Our fans prayed for this type of thing, and now we're in the middle of it. So enjoy it. You're 10-1. You're getting ready. You got a bye week. You get to watch half the country lose, and there's no way we can lose Saturday. And then you play the Egg Bowl and go dominate that and keep that Egg Bowl trophy home where it's been for a long time.
Enjoy it. Enjoy it. Stop talking. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think what he hoped to accomplish there was to quiet things. I think he very much missed the mark. If I could give you my summation, I'll tell you part of what I've told you for 2 weeks, which is Lane Kiffin is LSU's number one target. And I do believe when you heard all of the reports out of Gainesville late last week that done deal, I believe that they thought it was a done deal all the while Layla Kiffin was planning a trip to Baton Rouge, which tells you Florida was not a done deal, which tells you the fact that he hasn't signed his contract is he's keeping his options open, and all the stuff that are very obvious at this point. My best guess is this. I think Lane Kiffin wants to leave Ole Miss. I think even if this team is very good, can make the playoff, all that stuff, he knows long-term he's got a lower ceiling. I think he wants to leave Ole Miss. I think at this point, LSU has overtaken Florida. I do not think that was the case maybe a week ago, but I do think that is the case now. I think a big part of that is Florida got into the sweepstakes before LSU. They had expressed interest in Lane Kiffin earlier, and he had maybe gotten used to the idea until LSU entered the fray and started making their pitch, and people like Jimmy Sexton and Nick Saban maybe people professionally started steering him toward LSU instead of Florida. And then his family was here on Monday. And I think at this point, LSU has overtaken Florida if he leaves. If he leaves. And that's the complicating factor because I think Lane Kiffin wants to coach Ole Miss in the college football playoff, which is not necessarily this deep loyalty to Ole Miss or that team. I think it is legacy. Does he want to be the guy who left his team, the first coach to leave his team, who made a college football playoff? And ultimately, the fact that he wants that stage. He wants to be on the stage to coach his team in the playoff. What I think, opinion here, what I think is going to happen is Lane Kiffin and their athletic director, Keith Carter, the other particulars there, they're not going to let this get to the Egg Bowl. I don't think this gets to next Friday. Maybe a formal announcement waits until next Friday, but I can't see this lingering through there because what is happening now is Ole Miss, if they're going to be replacing their coach, is behind in the hiring cycle. For example, all the talk about, I'll throw out hypothetically with John Summerall, who's right down the road at Tulane. There is so much smoke around John Summerall in Auburn. Well, if Ole Miss is interested in John Summerall, which would be a great hire, by the way, and they wait 2 weeks, they may miss their window to hire John Summerall because Auburn could. I'm just using a hypothetical, by the way, because I don't know definitively that I don't cover Auburn. I mean, I've heard the same things you all have heard, so I'm just using this as a hypothetical. Or you could look at something that actually happened, which is Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech hired James. This season's not even over yet. There's 2 more weeks in this season, the regular season, and Virginia Tech's already hired James Franklin. The whole cycle's moved up. So what would stop Auburn from hiring John Summerall today? I know Tulane is playing for the conference, potential playoff, all that stuff, but what do you want to do? I mean, they could force the issue there. So I think what really is going to push this decision from Lane Kiffin ahead of next Friday is not necessarily the Egg Bowl or the college football playoff. It's Ole Miss's opportunity in this hiring cycle to get the guy that they want, whomever that may be, because you don't want to wait 2 more weeks. I mean, every day is an eternity in a hiring cycle. And James Franklin's already off the board. Who's next? I just don't think it. I just don't know how this drags until next Friday with the Egg Bowl. I don't think there's an ultimatum. I just think we're going to see Lane Kiffin and Keith Carter ultimately sit down. As I'm told, Ole Miss practices. They have their open date this week, and they practice on Thursday. And then the team's off Friday, Saturday, Sunday before they get back for work on Mississippi State on Monday. It sure feels like some domino could fall before next week's Egg Bowl. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.